Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look here at how to create a good quality cinematic trailer. Some of the steps that I go through to create a good quality cinematic trailer. Obviously, one of the first things we need to do is come up with a song choice. Now, song choice for me is really, really important. You can pick songs if you want from our library of songs. You can use those songs to cross-reference other songs. What we don't want to do is we don't want to use anything top 40. We don't want to use anything that's on the radio right now. We don't want to use anything that's been on the radio before. We don't want to use anything that is just too cliche. We don't want to use anything that is really slow and boring. We want to create something that has just a really nice energy to it. And song selection can be one of the hardest things, and really just right off the bat, it's one of the things that are going to be milestones in this project is selecting the song and sending it over for our review, just because it is such a hard, difficult process. But so we can take a look at YouTube and search some of the artists that we know. Kind of use those to come up with some new ideas. But there's some great artists out there, Maria Hines being one of them, unless I'm spelling that wrong. Marie Hines. So there's some really cool artists out there that have some really unique songs and looks to them, stuff that we can kind of do to find the good quality audio. What I like to do is sometimes I'll go into our library, and you'll see it on the public file store that you go into when you get the FTP instructions. We have a whole section on soundtrack music, and if you go into Bride Prep, you'll actually find add an artist here. Try to see if we can find the artist. Oh, maybe not. Let's start this one over again.
I cannot live without you. I told you this, it's true. I'll take pieces of you with me. I'll take parts you never knew. And one day you will wake up without warning or a clue, and start to notice little things that are missing parts of you. Oh.
So I wanted to take a look at what the process and some of the steps that we go through to create cinematic trailers are, just so that you have a good idea of what steps we go through and some of the ways that we do this to try to be as efficient as possible. Now, I got my start as an engineer, so breaking things down, it always helps me. I think when you're an artist, you tend to jump into things and you get kind of overwhelmed in a lot of ways. So we can make this a little bit more simple by coming up with a process and then showing you that process, and hopefully it will help you to create a good quality cinematic trailer. So first things first, finding the song choices is probably the hardest part of creating a cinematic trailer. There will be times where the client will have requested a specific song that will make your life a lot easier, and then there will be times where you'll just have to go out and find a song. Now, attached to this document, we're going to give you a few resources for how to find music. We don't want to have anything that's top 40. We don't want to have anything that's on the radio right now or will be on the radio, or was on the radio. Anything that's really just kind of poppy is too much. We want something that's a little more earthy, something that's a little bit more pretty, and then generally something that is going to be timeless, something that you're not going to end up hearing 1,000 times and getting sick of. So in this particular case, we had previously used a wedding song by an artist named Kina Grannis, and what I did was I Googled, or I put into YouTube her name, Kina Grannis, and I came up with, she had a new CD. Her new CD has a whole bunch of new tracks on it, and they have a very similar style that we like to edit to, so I went ahead and downloaded off of Amazon, or wherever you feel comfortable, her song, My Dear. Now, one of the first things that I try to do with My Dear, this song, what I'll try to do is I'll try to come up with a song structure. Now, what is this song? What does it sound like? And what is it, what fits where? This will oftentimes take listening to the song sometimes up to 7, 8, 9, 10 times. When you think about it, it could take you almost an hour to spend the time coming up with what the structure of the song is supposed to be. However, if you do that, you could save yourselves hours of sitting around and doing nothing. So the first thing I'll do is I'll sit and I'll listen to the song all the way through. I'll try to bring down this audio level to be able to identify what we're going to do here. So this song has some good structure to it. It has some spots where it changes tempo often, and so I think it's important to identify the change of tempo. The change of tempo in the song is going to be where it's going at one speed and then it completely changes on you, or that there's a crescendo, or there's a major moment in the song. So we want to start by identifying those. So what I first do is I will actually go in and create a new bin, and I'll create that, and I'll just call it titles, or I can even call it song structure. Okay, and in song structure, what we're going to do is we're going to put a title in there. We're just going to create a new title, and doesn't matter what we name it. I'm going to close it up, close this up, and we're going to use that title to drag it in here and sort of use it as a placeholder to try to identify where the song structure changes.
Me, I'll take parts you never knew, and one day you will wake up.
So what we're looking for here is for the song to change tempo.
And start to notice little things that are missing parts of you.
So this is interesting. This is a big drop right now. Although the song structure won't change, we do want to make a note of this change here. That is a big drop, and is basically dead. You can see in here where there's no audio. That could be a cool place to change. So we're going to note that change, and we're going to start and move the title over and start a new level of structure here. I mean, right there is great. You've got like basically rolling drums being played in the background, which completely changes the structure of the song. You could break this down as much as you want. I mean, in all technicality, the tempo of the song stayed the same for these two, but I like this breakup here, and as long as you're willing to find the different parts of the song that should have those major points in them. So I mean, like, I would identify this change right here.
carve upon your forehead and you whisper when you speak. I took them 'cause
I mean, technically that was another change,
I took them
but we're gonna
to
skip
be
it
mine.
so we don't micromanage it down to
Took
nothing.
them so you missed them so you'd want them back in time. Oh.
So you can hear the change in tempo there. So we'll bring this down and we'll notate it by dragging the title track over. Wait for a real significant change in the tempo. I think it's going to happen soon. Oh, it happens right about the same spot, which is interesting. Right about the same length of time. Kind of like right there is a huge change here. Technically, that's a change. So you got a real nice jump here where it's going to get like faster paced. And that's your last change of pace right there. So really what you have now is you have this pretty well broken up idea of the number of sections of the song that they have, the different changes in tempo. Now with that being said, you should look at these things and try to figure out what you want to do. With this broken down fairly well at this point, the next thing that I will do is I will actually start to identify what pieces of story that I have, because ultimately the story matters. You know, what do you have available to you? So the first place I'm going to go is right to the introductions, first dance, and speeches. So I'm going to skip right past the introductions. I'm going to skip past the first dance, and I'm going to go right to the speeches. And that should be right about here. Looks like there's a nice healthy break here.
Okay, I'm a little nervous.
So the first thing that I'm looking for when I'm looking at the speeches is, do I have clean audio of the speeches and does it sound good? Ultimately, if you're going to use this to tell the story, you need to make sure that it's going to sound good so it doesn't throw the person who's watching it off. So first things first, does it have clean audio? If it does, keep going. If it doesn't, move on, find something else. So the clean audio here sounds pretty good.
FYI.
We can use it. And so ultimately my next thing is I'm going to watch this entire set of speeches to watch for anything that I want. Now it looks like you've got a speech from a maid of honor, you've got a speech from a best man, and you have a speech from this gentleman over here. So when I listen to these, what I'm looking for is an intriguing story. Now what's interesting about speeches is that they actually are telling a story. So they're going to tell your story for you if you just learn to listen to it. The story is going to need a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now the beginning of the speech is always the most obvious. It's always where they say, you know, I'd like to introduce myself as this person, or for those of you who don't know me, however you want to identify it, it's almost always the same. And if we do it the same way every time, they're all going to look pretty boring. So we wait to find another beginning somewhere else. Try to find something where he starts to tell a story or she starts to tell a story that that you can use to basically tell the story throughout the wedding day.
Many of you don't know me, but I'm Tyler's brother, Corey, and I'm notoriously an emotional guy. I was afraid I'd start crying no more than 20 words into this speech, which is why these opening lines are 28 words long. I'd like to thank Larry and Lori Handelli for raising a daughter who is at once beautiful, intelligent, and one of the most driven people I've ever had the.
So none of this is particularly interesting or unique to me because, again, I think the uniqueness of this is really important to grab the most unique part of the speech.
Good for this guy. Thank you, Marcia, for your lovely speech, and Kevin for making all of this official. Many of you may have seen a photo on Facebook that my mother posted. Somewhere mixed in with...
So here's where he starts to begin to tell his story, and this is a good spot to pay attention to and see if you can use it to help to tell the story of their wedding day. Hopefully, the speech is going to have something to do with the both of them. Oftentimes, I feel like people spend too much time putting in speeches that speak only directly about the relationship that they have, that the person has with the person that they're there for. So in other words, a best man spends way too much time talking about all the things he did with the guy and never spends a minute talking about things that they did together with the girl, or talks about them as a couple. Really, that's all we care about. I mean, it's great to have little pieces of speeches that tell a little story about when they were younger or something like that, but ultimately you want to be able to tie it all together with a nice piece that talks about, who they are as a couple. So I'll go through and I'll actually spend the 20 minutes or so it takes to listen to these speeches. The next thing that I will do is I will go over to the ceremony and I will look at the ceremony stuff. Now, the ceremony is usually broke up into several parts. If you take a look at a ceremony, it's pretty obviously, a lot of it's the same. People walk down the aisle. Ultimately, there's some nice words by the priest or the person who's giving the ceremony. There's some nice words by other people during the ceremony. They'll turn towards people who are giving a reading, if you will. And then there's vows. The bride and groom will give their vows to each other. See if we can find that in here. There's the vows. And then there's the ring exchange. So ultimately they'll do the vows, then they'll do the ring exchange, they'll do the kiss, then they'll come up the aisle. So a ceremony is actually quite commonly broken up of basically a lot of the same stuff. So it's pretty easy to jump in and find the pieces you have to listen to. You don't have to watch the whole ceremony in full to get an idea of what you're looking for. So what I'll often do is I'll jump forward to when the priest opens up and starts talking about the couple themselves. So I'll watch that entire piece, see if he says anything that I really like. Then I'll kick over to the speakers and I'll listen to them. What are they saying? Do they say anything that's really nice about the couple that's worth keeping in? Do we have clean audio of it? Because that's the most important part. Is it could be the best thing in the world, but if it sounds terrible, it's not going to work. And then I kick over to their vows and I look to see what do their vows sound like? Are they unique? Are they interesting? Did they write them themselves? If they didn't write them themselves, then as far as I'm concerned, they're kind of basic and we can put them in, but they're not going to be the thing that tells my story. So once you've done watching the speeches all the way through and those parts of the ceremony, you should have a good idea of the amount of stuff that you have, the amount of things that you have to work with, and that's going to help you to tell your story. You've already identified the way this is going to be broken down. Now you have to kind of go through and watch the bride prep footage and the groom prep footage. So if you go through groom prep and bride prep, what we do is we break them down. We've already culled through them in the footage. We've created in this great piece called good footage, if you will, which really kind of gives you a real quick breakdown of all the good footage that we have. Groom prep has the same thing. B-roll has the same. So what I recommend that you do is actually watch, you don't even have to play the audio, you just have to sit there and watch through it. So you have a good general understanding of what you have for pieces. What did they do? What kind of stuff do they have? How much of it do you have? Because ultimately how much you have is really important. What are the key pieces that you need to include? If you just watch through all of the bride prep, it'll take you about 3 minutes. Watch through all the groom prep, that'll take you 3 more. And watch through all the B-roll stuff, which is all the excess stuff that you have. For setup, because sometimes setup footage can be awesome to help you transition. Once you've looked through all of that stuff, you should have a pretty good understanding of what it is that you have. Now you've watched the speeches. You've listened to the speeches. You've listened to all the people talking. You've watched the bride prep. You've watched the groom prep. You've watched the B-roll. You probably have spent just under 2 hours watching all the stuff that you have, listening to the song 5 or 6 times through, and now you're ready to start your cinematic trailer. And it becomes quite easy from that point how you put it together. the first thing that I'll do is I'll start to look at these sections that it's broken down into and make some decisions about where in here do I want to put some speeches. So what I'll do is I'll start to put like markers in at the top where I can afford a speech. Knowing how much of the speech I want to use will help me also put the speeches in where they belong. So I'll go through and I'll say, all right, here's what I want to do. First step, I'll go in and I'll start listening to the speech all the way
Okay,
through.
I'm a little nervous.
And as I come across a section of speech that I love, that I really want to use, I'll hit C for the cut tool. I'll do shift, and then I'll listen, shift and click to slice all the way down. I'll listen to it all the way through. I should pick another spot to work on this at. C, shift and click, and
Raising
then
a
I'll
daughter
watch
who was
it.
at once beautiful, intelligent, and one of the most
C.
driven people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing.
Shift and click when I'm done listening to that one small piece. I'll then copy it, and I'll bring it in here, and I'll lay it right into the trailer section. I'll go back to the speech, and I'll do the same thing again as I'm looking for the middle part of the
For
speech.
making all this.
Shift and
all this
click as
official.
I'm listening to it. If I hear a
Many
piece
of you
that I love,
May have seen a photo on Facebook that my mother posted.
again, C for cut tool.
Somewhere mixed in with
Shift, and then I'll take this section out as well. And I'll scroll forward a little bit as I drop in this piece. And so when I'm all done, as I'm looking through the intros, first dance, and speeches, I should have,
I have that.
you know, somewhere around
Now, in that photo, I'm dressed like Superman.
4 or 5 good sections of speech. And here we go. We'll just use 4 sections here. And then ultimately, I'll probably go in and grab the very end of the speech of the person that I'm using, because usually that'll be the point where they'll finish off their thoughts. So we'll go and see if we can find that right here.
She's been a member of our family for years. So let's raise a toast to my best. Say that. I'd love to be able to say that.
So right there, we'll cut this down.
I'd love to be able to say that, you know, we're welcoming Andrea to our family.
And I'll take that piece of there, and we'll put that over here. Then we're going to go right to the very
She's
end.
been a member of our family for years.
Ready?
She's been a member of our family for years. So let's raise a toast to my best friend Tyler and my new sister Andrea. Drink his water.
So there you go. So we'll grab this piece and we'll jump that over to the trailer section, and we'll drop these two together so that they...
She's been a member of our family. She's been a member of our.
So we'll take this piece. So this will be the easiest piece to place, as we'll basically come in here and I'll delete these pieces because I obviously don't need them. I don't need those audio pieces, and I'll drag this one up. So that, and you know, I'll leave some space to be able to move it into place. Knowing that I have a drop down here in this song, that's a good place to put this piece of speech. So we'll scroll it in over here.
I'd love to be able to say that, you know, we're welcoming Andrea to our family. She's been a member of our family for years.
So I'm going to raise this gain up by about 28. Actually, maybe not. Maybe I have it too low. But anyway.
Say that.
Obviously, this is really high. Let's pull this back.
You know, we're welcoming Andrea to our family. She's been a member of our family for years. So let's raise a toast to my best friend Tyler and my new sister Andrea.
So, and that was pretty simple to just drop in there at this last section. So I already have one section covered. So now all I have to do is kind of work through the remaining sections. And this might be a spot that I have to open this video somehow. So maybe I'll open it with the speech, or maybe I'll open it with something else. But it's got a nice low.
I cannot live without you.
You know, maybe with this, what I'll do here is I'll open with the speech and I'll lean into it.
Who was at once beautiful, intelligent, and one of the most driven people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing.
So, I mean, this is really not pertinent to the piece that I'm looking for, but I'm going to try just showing you how I would set that in if I decided to do it that way. So what I would do is I would, first of all, get rid of all this extra audio. and then drag up this stuff here. Okay. And then what I would do is I would come up, down, and then slide it into place. Now, because it's not long enough to fit into this section here, I might use this piece right here for details. But I'd like to be able to hear it because we want to create something that's layered. So we'll start
Raising
here.
a daughter who is at once beautiful, intelligent, and one of the most driven people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing.
I cannot live.
So that might be a good place to begin this whole thing. Now, of course, again, I have to stress, I just pulled this piece of speech out at random. You would probably have something more meaningful. And often what I would try to do is create the speech and have it run over the top of the first section. And so that way, now you've got the speech at the beginning and you've got the speech at the end. And now really all you're dealing with is these whole middle sections in here. So now that you've gotten rid of 2 sections, now you've got only these 7 sections left. And so you have to ask yourself, what do I have and what do I need to do? Well, I have bride prep, groom prep, a first look, ceremony, introductions, their first dance. Those are the things, the cake cutting. These are the things that I have to try to fit in there if I can. Now, one really, really important thing, it is not necessary to fit everything into one piece, into one. It is not necessary to fit everything into one trailer. Do not try to fit parent dances. Do not try to fit, dance footage if it doesn't fit. Don't force it. Use the pieces that make sense. I've found a lot of editors in the past who have just simply stuffed as much stuff into it as possible, and it makes it look terrible. So you might take a look at this and you might say, well, I want to open with bride prep. I want to do bride prep. I want to do, maybe bride prep under these 2 sections. Maybe I'll do groom prep here. Maybe I'll finish off with the bride getting dressed here. I'll do the first look here. And then maybe what I'll do is I will do from the first look, we'll drop the ceremony in here. And because this is a faster tempo, I really should have like their vows in here maybe. And finish out with like when it starts to really pump up. Maybe this is them walking up the aisle and then also walking into the reception, and then a lot of dance footage stuff. So knowing what I want to do in here, I'll probably come in and I'll probably start to recreate new titles. So with song structure being there, I'll come in and I'll start creating some new titles. And I'll actually name these titles now. So new item, and we'll go title. And then I'll say bride prep. And I'll drag that over the top of this section 1 and section 2. And then I'll delete these 2. Now I'll also say, let's just say I know that this picks up speed. So this beating of the drums could be the kiss. Could be the kiss with some nice clapping over the top of it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll create a title and I'll call it Kiss. And I'll drop that title in right here. Really just kind of put it right in the spot. And then I'll create a title for coming up aisle. Okay. So, to me, I might come in here and say new title and drop in bride down aisle. And come in here and drop this title in and say basically from here to here. And then we may have to put in a new title, call it vows. Okay. And we'll come in here and we'll drop the vows in here. So you can see here how now at this point I'm deleting off and I'm keeping the structure, but I'm really being very specific about what I want. Maybe I'll come in here and I'll say, let's do dancing footage, right? And maybe I want to just put dancing footage at the end. And then I'll come in here and go, that's coming up the aisle, so we're going to do introductions. Put that in here. Let it take up some time. And then we'll drop a new item, and we'll call this first dance. And we'll drop that in here. kind of randomly and arbitrarily put in because I have no idea how long that's going to last for. And it just sort of has to all happen at once. It's fast moving. It's fast moving footage. So really I'm now only concerned essentially with like this in here. What am I going to do with this structure? Because I've got all this figured out. So perhaps this right here is first look. Okay. Okay. And then you have maybe new item title and say groom prep. Drop it in here. Delete that out. And now we're going to create one last new item and call it bride getting dressed. Cool. I'm going to drag that in here. And what we have is the structure of our cinematic trailer. So once you've gotten to this point, what you want to try to do is now start to fill in the rest of these areas that you're looking for. You've got bride prep, groom prep, bride getting dressed, first look. You know, you've got the bride coming down the aisle of the vows. Really just one of those things where you can just start to grab the pieces that you need from these areas. Now it becomes a little easier. What I like to do is I like to go into the different prep sections, and what I'll do is I'll just sit and I'll watch the let me turn down the audio on this. What I'll do is I'll just sit and watch as I find good footage that I like. I'll pull it up on the track, and what this will allow me to do is as I'm watching through and scrubbing through briefly, I can find pieces that I'm looking for that I like and that I think will piece together nicely, because I think that's also really important. It matters that you can actually make these look good. So I'll take a look at this piece here and then this piece here, and I'll pull up all of my favorite pieces, and then once I have them, I'll just go in and I'll copy them, and then I'll drop them in over here, and then I can either ripple delete them down, or for faster, if you want, we can actually just grab them, copy them, paste them into place. You use a little trick where we pull a title over, scroll to the end. What you do is you drag up the video track and then drag it right back down again. Grab the selections in between and use ripple delete. It'll piece everything together. So once you've done that, what'll start to happen is you'll use this from the trailer. You can actually copy in the title section and paste it in. And what this does is it serves as a placeholder for when you're putting files together. So you know how much space you need to fill a particular section. So once you've finished and you've got all the bride prep clips together that you need, you know, however you want to do it, I'm just going to copy some pieces till they fit into this space. Then what'll happen is that all of this sort of fits nicely into this section. Now what you can do is just grab this whole section of bride prep, go back over the trailer. What I'll do is I will line it up right with the end. I'll lock down this video track, lock down this audio track, and paste it right in. I'll lock this one down as well, and then paste it. Well, we'll unlock this one, and we'll paste this one right in. And you can see here how now it starts to sort of formulate into this video that kind of makes a lot more sense, okay? That fills the bride prep section. You know, obviously there's going to be some overhang, but this will allow you to go in and watch it a few times. Now we'll do the same with the groom prep. So we go into groom prep section, go to the good footage, pull that off to the side here. We can just kind of put it up here. And then again, right with this, I'll do the same thing. I'll start pulling up pieces that I like that make sense for what we're doing. Okay. And these pieces seem to make sense right now. And again, we'll go over to here. We'll drop them here. I'm going to go into the trailer. I'm going to grab my groom prep title, and I'm going to paste it in and then drag it over the top here. Well, I'm going to put this over here. I'll make a duplicate so I can do that trick again, where we pull up and then down and then grab it, right click, and ripple delete. Okay, and then we'll start to feed this into place so that we know we're starting to assemble what we like in groom prep as well. So as you go through here, kind of skip through a lot of this stuff here. You've got the video games here. You got a cute piece of them sitting there playing, so I'll copy those down. Then I'll paste those in, and then just I can usually ripple delete just to bring them right in. So you can start to see how it starts to come together actually pretty nicely. Now I've already used up half of my groom prep stuff, so I know I'm probably going to need to go in here and actually fast forward quite a bit to him actually getting ready. Let's go ahead and flip through that. Obviously some footage that got used somewhere else, but let's go ahead and see if we can't find some of him getting ready. Looks like we're a little out of order with some of this groom prep stuff, but that's okay. It must be a camera thing. Let's go ahead and find it. There it is. Perfect. So then what I'll do is I'll start to say, you know what, I only have half of this left, and I still need a little bit of time to get together some pieces of him actually getting dressed. So let's go ahead and move in some of this stuff here. We'll bring this up. I don't really need the socks yet, but I'll take this piece if I can have it. He actually has this thing that he moves right in and does that, so this clip needs to be longer. So what I'll do is I'll copy this in, I'll paste it, I'll alt and grab to drag and drop, and then I'll pull this up and then down, and then right click and ripple delete. That'll pull this together so that we'll have this piece right here. I'll make it a little bit longer so that he actually gets to the point where he throws it over his shoulder. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll fill in this section here, and again I'm just going to copy and paste just to have it make sense and fill it right in here, and then this will help me to kind of have the pieces that I need for groom prep. Now I'll copy this into the trailer. Again, we're gonna try to drop it right in here. So now you have some bride prep, you have some groom prep, and you need to transition from one to the next. So you've got the bride getting ready, you've got the groom getting ready. You really don't want to jump from one to the other. So this is a great spot to put a second piece of speech so that you can cut away to the speaker and then cut back to the next thing that's going on in the series. So we'll take this next section of speech, and what we'll do is, again, I'm going to put it right about here, and again, I like to lock up some tracks and then paste it right in over the top. So as you can see, by locking the tracks, it helped to paste it. Now we have a bridge. If I'm going to turn off this video track and we have a bridge, we have the bride getting ready, then we have a jump to the groom getting ready. Okay, and so what I'll do is I'll use this as a transitional piece. So maybe you'll hear the guy speaking. We'll disable this piece here so that you can hear him speaking over this piece. You know, same thing over here. Maybe you see this and then you hear him speaking, but I will want to make sure that we cut away to a video of him speaking so that when I cut back, you can see we went from bride prep to him speaking to groom prep. Okay, this helps to transition so that you're not looking at a solid jump. So that's a good place to put that speech in. And then you've got two more speeches that you kind of have to thread in there somewhere, make them make sense. And so ultimately I will look at, you know, we're going to get dressed again. So maybe that's a good place to put another second piece of this piece of speech, because we're going to be jumping from him getting dressed to her getting dressed. So maybe we need to put this set of speech in, you know, somewhere right around here. Okay, so we know that we're going to go from him getting dressed, we'll be hearing the speech, we'll see him, and then she'll get dressed. And then the she getting dressed part will hopefully have some exit sequence to her first look. And then the first look, hopefully we'll have some exit to bride going down the aisle and the vows. So where you put this last piece of speech will kind of be up to you wherever it makes sense. But once you've got this pretty well put together, now you've laid in the structure for everything you have. You drop in the bride getting ready, you drop in a little bit of the first look, bride vows, you know, the kiss, the coming down the aisle, introductions, first dancing footage. Now you drop that last piece of speech, and what you have is a basic structure for the entire trailer. Now all it is basically about an hour, maybe 2 hours of just watching it over and over and over again and just tuning it to what needs to be done, going in and adjusting little pieces at a time until you're done. We put a title sequence in the beginning. I like my title sequences to, you know, let's see what happens. seconds here. I'm going to give you some audio here. I like my title
Raising a
sequence to be
daughter who is
layered. I like my title sequence to be layered. I don't want to see him speak and then hear him at the same time. I want to hear him first, then see him.
Raising a daughter who is at once a beautiful.
So what I'll do is I'll go exponential fade to have this come in nice and neat.
Raising a daughter.
I've got another piece somewhere in here. Let's see, there it is.
A daughter who is at once a beautiful.
So I will probably go black space with this. So when you hear it,
Daughter who is at once a beautiful.
and then what I'll do is I'll start to create a new title. So title would be groom name, and then I'll, I like the titles to be let's just say his name is Dan. I like titles to be done with Century Gothic. I like Century Gothic. I like my titles to be about 80 point. I don't want them to be 100. So 80 points good for me. And so I'll have this title for Dan. And then I'll create what I'll do is I'll double click and I'll copy the word. And then I'll create a new title. Call this, Jessica. If that were her name. And then I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to drop this down here. And we'll change this to Jessica. Okay, and then we'll close this up. And now we can drag Jessica in, and I'm going to leave a track here to drop the ampersand. Right now I'm going to import the ampersand in. So we're going to go to computer. I know it's in public cinema, and there's our ampersand for the PSD file. And then I'm going to drag this in here. So I'm going to assemble this off to the side here so we can see it. But what I want to do is I want to do a cross dissolve. Here, a small cross dissolve, and then let these fade nicely in. Bring the cross dissolve back. And then come back here and bring the cross dissolve here. A small cross dissolve for all of them. So when it fades in, it looks nice. Obviously that position is problematic, so we'll go into the effect controls. Okay, we'll go to motion and we'll use the positioning to bring that to where it needs to go. There's that. And then I'm going to do the same thing to position the word Jessica. Okay, maybe put some space between Jessica. I like where Dan is positioned here at 540. So we're going to do the same thing with Jessica. Oh, maybe not. Well, at any rate, we'll drag that up. We'll put a little bit of distance between the ampersand and the word Jessica. And there we go, good. So that when that loads in, that's what it looks like. Something like that. We'll hold for 3 seconds, and then we'll cut, and we'll delete this excess, and then we'll cross dissolve out. Small cross dissolve come out. Okay. And then we'll slide that into place, and that will occur before you actually see the video of the guy speaking. So that what you have is you have, and then I'm going to put a dip to black right at the beginning of seeing him speak for the first time. So what you have is you have a layered effect. You have the guy speaking. You have the title appear. You have the music come in. You have the title drop. And then you see him speaking. Okay, so we should change camera angle here. So that's what this will look like.
A daughter who is at once beautiful, intelligent, and one of the most driven people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing.
I told you this is true. I take pieces of you with
And Lee Cohn and Dave and Mary Griffin.
So you can see here why that starts to look, cinematic in its approach. So the next thing I'll do is I'll use the pen tool for P to bring down. I will put 2 little pen marks here, and then I'll put them here as well. And what this pen will do, and then the V tool for bringing down the audio, will drop the audio back about 12.73.
And one of the most driven people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And Lee Cohn and Dave and Mary Griffin for doing everything they possibly could for this guy.
So you can see how that'll come through. And then what we're hoping is that as this comes out,
Many of you may have seen a photo.
so what I'll also do is I will come in here and I will drop back the audio gain very, very low on all of this excess footage to like -5.
May have seen a photo.
So you can see how we put that together. We got the intro, and then right at the very end, what we'll do here is we will drop in. I'm going to import this here, import the amp.mp4, and we'll drag and drop that piece in, and that kind of sits on its own. So I want a little exponential fade to fade out the audio here of the people clapping. And I don't mind a hard cut here. Kind of think it looks good. So I actually may kind of pull this out with the clapping.
Drink his water.
Maybe cut this back a little bit so we can hear people clapping and scroll that forward. I like layered approaches. I like for the video to end but the audio to continue and then start into the next piece of video. I like it to be very, very, very organic. And there you go. Certainly that would be the way to end this piece right here. And so then what I would do is just kind of go in and play around with it, you know, over and over. It's kind of like massaging clay, getting in here and moving it along a little bit each time. You've got your intro, you got your end, you got your middle, you got your speeches figured out, and kind of just lay it in there. And that's really, to me, the best approach to starting to get one of these trailers together. Jeff, definitely a few notes is, number one, we definitely don't want to see a lot of crossfades. I use a crossfade here to transition the text because it'll fade in nicely, but we don't want to use crossfades in between. I'd love to see your creativity if you've got something cool to do with some effects, but I don't want to see too many effects. We do a lot of hard cuts. We let the footage tell the story. We let the story, you know, help it along. And we like to use dip to blacks and exponential fades on audio as often as they need to, but we're not going to use a lot of crossfading because we feel like that looks sort of old school. We don't slow down footage unless we absolutely have to. If it's necessary, we'll slow something down, but for the most part, there's really no need to, unless it's a good effect. Like if you've got a first dance and they're doing something really cool and you have it at 60 frames per second, then slow that down. Because that may look nice, but slowing it down just for the purpose of dragging something out is definitely not the right way to go. We don't want to, again, I can't stress enough, you don't have to force everything into this trailer. It does not have to have every piece of the day. It just has to have the most important pieces of the day for the bride and groom and telling their story. In other words, if the cake cutting doesn't fit, don't force it in there. If the parent dances don't fit, don't force it. You've got to have the first look because it was a major part of their day. You have to have the ceremony. You have to have the bride getting dressed and the groom getting dressed, but if something doesn't fit, then you don't have to include that much of it, or you don't have to force too much in there. Sometimes less is more, and it helps with these things. So, best of luck, and we'll take a look at what you got.